call this meeting to order. No, we do that at the next meeting.
Oh,
Well, because this is special. Well, according to the agenda,
Sure.
I'm following the agenda.
Do the pledge 4 times for all.
Hey, we're kind of combining, wellness.
Sure.
Getting up and down. Call this meeting to order. Let the record show all the members are here except for Harmson. This special meeting is being called to discuss capital improvement bond proposal. First off, we'll be discussing the process and the schedule of events.
So we posted for this meeting a public hearing. The culmination of the meeting after the public hearing will be a resolution for the city to consider the resolution 0806-2026A, which is a resolution giving preliminary approval to the issuance of general obligation capital improvement plan bonds in an amount not to exceed $1.95 million, and adopting the City of Slayton, Minnesota capital improvement plan for the years 2026 through 2030. So backing up, CIPGO bonds are a financial mechanism for cities to buy or sell debt to finance projects, and they are typically used for building type of projects, so not vehicle, not roads, so fire halls, public works shops, that type of thing. So in the drafted CIP plan for consideration is the plan for 2026 through 2030. So you can see in the amended plan as of today that it was for in 2026 a new construction. We amended that to say new construction or acquisition and or renovation of a public works facility, just to allow our options, which we will discuss more further in depth at the public works facility bid discussion with him at the next meeting. If the council approves the resolution tonight, that means that the CIP is adopted and signals our intent to issue those bonds. That doesn't mean we have to issue the bonds. The 30-day reverse referendum clock starts, which would expire on the 5th. And so then in our next regular meeting on the 8th of September, because of the holiday, we would be looking at the next step there. Any questions so far on the reason why we're doing it, or scheduling, or anything like that? If the council doesn't, then at this point I recommend opening up the public hearing for any comments or questions.
All right, I'm opening up the public hearing at 18:03 to take input, questions, comments from anybody attending. We're here for the introduction of Josh gave on it. So is anybody wish to make comment? Yes. No, well, you can work. This is good enough.
Carol Benda, and I'm at 3280 30th Street, Slayton, Minnesota. And I see that a couple of my items are already going to be addressed down here. I was questioning about the Golden Living development as to what's happening there. I hadn't seen anything. And then I also wanted to know about the process that's been going on with purchasing Excel Energy. I needed to know that one. And then my other one was, how was this going to affect our electric bill? Do you know? Because Excel isn't part of this. And those are my 3 questions that I have tonight.
Okay, well,
they might be addressed.
Those are really fine questions. We're willing to hear you out on it and give you input on it, but that isn't germane to this hearing. This hearing is specific. This special hearing is specific about the capital improvement bond issuance.
But I didn't know if some of those capital bond issues would be used for, let's say, to help build something across from my house. If it's all going to go.
If it's okay with you, Mayor, I can certainly address.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's address it then.
Yeah. Okay. So number 1 was the Golden Living Center, right?
Yes.
So we acquired it in 2018. We demolished it, got the grant to do that. all the way up to like 2020, and then our developer that we had on the line kind of fell off because costs skyrocketed, interest rates went the wrong way during COVID and post-COVID, and so they backed out. Within the last 6 months, that same company, Minnesota Signature Care, has kind of come back to the table and expressed a pretty strong interest in building the same facility that they had planned on doing there. So 24 bed, about a $5 million build. It would be assisted living slash memory care. Um, I will mention that the word assisted living has kind of changed in the last decade. It used to be like full skilled nursing homes. And then the state many years ago put a moratorium on skilled nursing beds. And so when you hear assisted living now, that can be anywhere from like a Sunrise Terrace where you're not getting very many services, all the way to pretty much what Golden Living Center was with lift assists, and you're getting fed and toileting and the whole 9 yards. So how Minnesota Signature Care envisions this specific facility to be if they get it done in Slayton is more towards the latter of those that I explained. It would be pretty high services, where you would be able to have a lift assist and past meds and everything that you might need. So not independent living, fairly assisted, and so that's about the only information I have right now. They are talking to their private, bank financing folks to see if they can get the project kind of pulled back together on the sources and uses for the construction of the building.
So none of the monies could be for used towards that?
That is correct. The city has taken the stance up to this point, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't want to sell that lot and just kind of fire sale it to anybody because we want it to be used for assisted living. However, the city, and I support this direction as staff, do not want to be in the assisted living business either in terms of self-developing. We recognize it as a strong need, but not one that we really want to bite off that whole apple with, because it's quite intense. None of the bond issues or anything would be used to build a assisted living facility. Does that answer any questions on that one? And then in terms of the electrical process, so council doesn't even know this. So surprise, we got this at like 4:30 p.m. today. We are, unless they change it, we are on the agenda for the PUC on Thursday, August 20th, for consideration at the Public Utilities Commission. And what they are considering is basically, in a nutshell, what should the city of Slayton pay for acquiring Xcel Energy's infrastructure in the city of Slayton? So what's the price tag going to be? This is all public information through the process, but they are about they think it's worth about $35 million, and we think it's worth about $3 to $5 million. So there's just a slight variation of opinion on what that system is worth, and it's up to the Public Utilities Commission at the state to decide what that correct number is. It has taken so long because up to this point it's been at the Office of Administrative Hearings, where an administrative law judge authored a report on what her opinions are on what to do to come up with a number. Speaking candidly, I don't think the report is worth the paper it's printed on, not because the number was too high, but it didn't really provide a super great roadmap of what the PUC should be considering moving forward and picking that price. And I think Xcel Energy would probably tell them the same thing. Both sides aren't happy with that. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Public Utilities Commission does on August 20th. I do not foresee at all that there will be a final decision made then. I think there will be lots of meetings, but we've been waiting 2.5 months for them to at least call the meeting, and now we finally. So, in regard to the Power On Midwest, They are completely separate processes. You are right that Xcel Energy is in as a partner in that. It's Great River Energy or ITC and Great River Energy and Xcel. I say Great River Energy twice. But they want to build basically a huge 765 kV transmission line from South Dakota all the way to Wisconsin, basically. And they want to, so specifically our little jaunt of that would be like Brookings substation to the Lakefield substation. Murray County is dead in the center of that. So right now, they're just in the certificate of need / environmental review process. So like there was a meeting last night that they hosted. That's not a PUC hearing. That's just a Power on Midwest hearing. It's more into the routing and environmental process. But right now, it appears to me as if their main route kind of goes, Lake Wilson and then dips south and cuts kind of around Iona. And so will it be in and around Slayton? That depends on how you define that. Are you going to be able to see it from Slayton? No, you're not. But it is going to be in Murray County more than likely. If it, what it will do to electrical bills, what they're saying is that they're going to push them more stable or go down because what they are saying is that there's lots of generation in the area of power and not enough transmission to get it out. And so they're having to curtail generation and wind and solar to keep it here and do nothing with it versus sell it out on the market and have it transmitted out. I have no worldly idea if that's the truth or based any sort of reality, and I'm not educated enough to say whether, one way or the other, on whether it's going to push, make bills go up or down.
I'm in the loop with Minnesota Rural Energy Coalition, or anyway. As Josh spoke to the curtailment locally out with the wind generation and whatnot, there's a lot more power that can be produced than what can be exported. There's more product than road, you could say, which means that a lot of these wind turbines, for instance, if you drive around, they're not running and it's windy. It's because there's nowhere to go with electricity. Two things that impacts the micro level, that when they're not selling electricity, they're not paying production tax to the counties and townships. So in a sense, that can cause our property taxes to go up because the county isn't receiving as much revenue from that. In the macro level, if they can't export this power to other places to consume, and they have to use more costly sources of electricity, that overall increases the price per kilowatt across the system. Now, whether that's actually going to be true in the end, that's the economic understanding of what that will imply.
It is true and well documented by every utility company. That's why Great River Energy, so Great River Energy and Xcel Energy space, Great River Energy is a nonprofit that's basically formed by 26 co-ops around the upper Midwest. They're based in Maple Grove, Minnesota. And they're very, very large. They have generation, distribution, and transmission. And the fact that they're partnering with one of the largest transmission companies and the biggest for-profit shareholder-owned company in Xcel Energy is a statement in of itself that, I think the need for transmission is probably there. Is this the best way to do it? I don't know the answer to it. I know that nobody wants a 765 kV line in their backyard. It's the same size as like the one that you see in like South Dakota interstate. They're quite large, bigger than us.
Bigger.
And you were here before at the beginning of the meeting, I talked about, I went to that meeting and I'm personally impacted by one of the routes that's going to either be on the north side or the south side of one of my farms.
So that's all I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions about the nuance between when we're talking about the general obligation bond versus the bond that the Xcel Energy acquisition would be covered with, which is it's a different, it's a revenue bond. So because that's a priority fund that we can't take the regular tax type and apply it toward. The same thing applies to the water fund. If we were going to build a new lagoon or a water tower or something like that, that couldn't be this type of money.
I really appreciate coming straight to the source. Yes, we like that here.
Carol, you can be now the
Oh, okay.
okay.
Can I probably time explaining it to
Okay. Just tell them to come talk to.
Josh?
Yes.
That's
Did we have? Was there anything else, Carol, that you want?
Well, I'm good.
Okay.
Listen.
Well, you're welcome to say the whole meeting. Did we have any written?
no, nothing. No
Okay.
phone calls, no emails, no letters.
Okay. Well, with no further input from the public, I'm closing the hearing at 18:17. This time we move on to approve resolution 0806-2026A.
I'll make the motion to do that.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Not all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. That therefore concludes the business of the special meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. 18:17.
Now it's perfectly.
Well, I got to call to order. So there you go. All right, I call this meeting to order at 18:17. Let the record show that all council members are present with the exception of Harbson, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I assume all the public questions that were to be asked have been asked. So we'll go on to the agenda. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
Negative.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We'll move on to the minutes of the special meeting of July 6, 2026 and the regular meeting of July 2026. Are there any additions, corrections, or questions regarding the minutes of either of those meetings? Hearing none, then those minutes stand approved as printed. We'll move on to the claims, and there's the Excel sheet of the new ones. Everybody's had an opportunity to look those over. We actually got a tree bill. Yes. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Anything for notice of communications?
Yeah, no.
I was one thing I was going to bring up, but we'll bring it up during Marty's presentation. How about pending? Is there something that we haven't discussed there that we want to talk about tonight?
No, it hasn't been talked about or maybe later.
Okay. With no unfinished business, we'll move into new business, and we have Marty Seifert here from the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities to give us a rundown on what the things the coalition has been working on over the past session. One of the most productive sessions in a decade, I believe.
Well, we've got some things. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. think I've come here for 10 years or 11 years now, something like that. So just living for Marshall, and appreciate you having me tonight. I'm trying to be as brief as I can. You have in your packet kind of a session report like this. Um, Talks about some of the things that we had. We had, as the handout says, modest expectations because of the divided house being 50-50 or 60-67. Honestly, they got more done than we expected. Bonding bill, I think you guys had some beneficiaries of things in there, and you had a lot of seniority behind you, which is all leaving now, but your replacement legislators will be good and effective, like Joshua Becker. But we started session. I think I talked to Josh early on. Like, we're gonna have bonding bill. It's a massive undertaking. The fact that things were divided 34, 33, 67, 67 didn't go well with the exiting, elements of nastiness back. So it had the most, bonding bill had the most votes of any bonding bill in probably 30 years. It was stunning. Votes, the metrics were very infrastructure based, not a lot of porky stuff, very, I think, bread and butter type items. So bonding goals was the number one thing that we were working on to get it done. A lot of our member cities have projects. We may not work on that individual project. We always advocate for it to be in the bill, and advocate for a bill to pass in general. So we had some progress on housing, some more money put into that. As you know, we always fight against the proposals to have the legislature micromanaging zoning. That's your job. Always. We don't want the legislature micromanaging and plopping forcing guys to pop in or maybe the neighborhoods. Lead line service replacement worked on quite a bit. They funded that about 50% of the request. The federal money runs out next year. And we got about half the money that we would need for next year's construction season. So, the lead line thing will keep going. I'm assuming you guys did your inventory the best that you could, as most of our cities did. Some cities have nothing to do, and some have the entire city to do, and some are kind of hodgepodge. We're doing our best to come back next year on that one. And that's very important, obviously, as a functionality. Owners that have had $100, nobody wants to have lead in their so it's local government aid was not a big focus this year, other than just protecting what we had. Look at enhancing that next year when the budget year hits, and try to get that put on inflation as always. But usually the legislature likes to review it. There were some other little pieces here and there, some environmental things that we worked on. Some of those end up going into rulemaking and so forth. These different standards that the EPA and the MPCA keep pushing. So we end up going to litigation if we have to. We try to do contested hearings, and we also are some comments. Then I'm just going to stand for questions.
Question, but I like the article on the total nitrogen. Trying to shift the focus on the people that are, greatly impacted with these it does always seem like they did this back.
Yes. Point sources need to go after non-point sources. Always stop. You guys know that.
And I think that's kind of just logical to when the standards are lower than the drinking water standards. There's a flaw in that. Some of the concerns in when I gave my regional development legislative report, because we won't need to worry about as many construction delays next year because there really wasn't any meaningful transportation money.
Yes. Yeah, they did no transportation bill. Frankly, on the majority side in the Senate, they were afraid of more license tab fees, as people get rich by how expensive they are. So they dealt with that either in the tax bill or in the funding bill or somewhere.
Who's in a tax?
And they did not want to vote on that because there's a lot of constituents. We had a lady in front of me in that It was a used car, but she paid over $1,000 for license too. So it's actually yeah. This might be an issue. So
Was that recent?
that was last May. Yeah.
Okay, so it was before the reduction.
Yeah. So they'll get a temporary reduction and then it starts next year. And that's
The trade-off, which is an unfortunate thing with that, is it creates a hole in transportation, but they fixed it by pulling out the general fund. So now the hole's in the general fund.
so that's the thing. If you want to do it, they don't want to create a wall. You're gonna have to backfill. It's not domestic roads. Plus, I guess
We already had a cliff, structural cliff.
yeah, so it's gonna be tough. One thing that we're talking about in the office that I'd like to get your input on, because I know that Mayor and Josh at different times have attended our summer conferences, is potentially consolidating and having one conference that isn't so close to the league conference and maybe have it more in the fall and have it kind of bigger, better, focused, instead of having two conferences, having one. And that for people's schedules would maybe be easier for them to attend. Do you think that would be something you'd be interested in? Or should the coalition stick with the same two? Because we really value the input of people who've been at it. That's what they think.
I'll let the mayor speak for himself, but personally, that sounds like utterly fantastic.
That was something that we talked about at our legislative committee and the Regional Development Commission, that in the old days, the summer conference was an awesome time to get a feeling of what the concerns and needs were, and then distill it down at the fall conference. But especially on election years, we have a talk about feel like it's not worth our time to go to the summer one because uh, who knows what it'll look like after the election.
That's every other year.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we got to talk about. This how do you tee things up when you don't know who's in charge? Yeah. Who do you bring in and so forth? But if you do want to get a hold of Bradley, say Marty discussed this a little bit with us. Here's how we feel. That'd be helpful because we don't want to have it where people are outraged at us because and it helps keeps doing stuff. We have to pay to put this on.
Right.
And it keeps what you guys pay us. It can kind of help keep the costs from increasing, and we just it's win-win that way. We can have bigger attendance. We had less than 100 people at the summer conference, which was wonderful. It was a great conference, but we had like 78 people. We used to have 125, 150. So we think if we go into one bigger event, we'll get more people to come.
I think you're right about that.
I do too. I will mention that to like Jay and some of the other boards I'm on where they're in the GNMP, and because that's kind of the feeling I've been getting from them, and I'll tell them to email.
We have our regulars. I mean, the Steve Nasby's, the Pat Washingtons, Southwest Minnesota go to a lot of these. We don't want to offend anybody, make it look like we're trying to cut corners, but at the end of the day, quality of quantity.
I think if the coalition chose to move to a fall one, and it needs to be after the election, on election years.
Yeah, I'll pass it on. You feel it should be maybe after.
I think it really needs to be, because that has such an impact. As you mentioned, we don't know what's going to change in leadership. Who's going to be in charge of what. The other thing that I saw was extremely beneficial, and if there's a way to do it at least every other year, is the regional meeting, because there were a lot of council members, just anecdotally from our city, they got a lot greater understanding of the work that you're doing on our behalf. Yeah, I mean, we don't need
This
to.
is snarky, but he's film, so Hutchinson is not super South.
Neither is Morris.
I agree.
Now it's like that.
I mean, even Redwood, I mean, it's farther. It's an acceptable distance.
I think 2 or 3 new members attend, and all of them said, "Wow, this is really fantastic."
Yeah, and like last year, it was the league's thing, and it was during Murray County Fair. So, well, I guess we're not going to go to the fair or go to the fair since it's during the fair. But
Yeah, I had talked with them about it. We can sound like this is at least after the
yeah,
not a risk when many fairs are going on. Parades are like staying on August. July's busy, so like September, October is kind of band what they're looking at, but you know, we're open to your suggestions. I'll pass it on. Anything else? Other questions or? So I agree.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it, Marty. All right. We'll then move on to penultimate item, which really is like the big deal. Kate is going to tell us about, present our report card for last year.
You want me to stand?
You don't have to.
Whenever you feel comfortable.
I was like, it's just gonna take
It's going to be a while.
get comfortable. You guys can see on the front area report, since we don't come here with a final report, just an option of what we're gonna write up on in our opinions. So the Minnesota League of Science opinion that there were 3 compliance violations. The first one being the higher mental benefit reimbursement, which is what gets paid out when you have a retiree fire person gets $1,000 fireman. That reimbursement was not paid back to fire relief in the 30 days. The second violation being that we found 1 bill paid outside the 35-day window with no interest added. Oh, that's something we like actively go look for, but if we see it, we write it up. That one happened to be a library bill. We discussed it. They were going to be forwarding a bill that got received at the library. So it's a way, standing point for Josh to be able to go talk to the library staff and any staff at that meeting that are receiving bills and getting them forwarded to Josh in a timely manner so you get those paid without that stipulation. And then the last one being that there was 4 bills that were paid without council approval, so that is different state statute. That being said, those instances happened where bills did come in late. Josh got them paid right away because they were late. However, when he gave you guys your list that you review every monthly meeting or bi-monthly meeting, then those bills were missed because they weren't on that normal pay date. So bringing it to his attention to make sure that you're going through old bills or bills that were paid immediately as well, bring them to your attention. And then on the right side there, internal control write-offs are the same as from the last couple of years. 2 of them being really outside of your guys' control, but you rely on some products to prepare your financials, just go prepare them on your own, and we're supposed to staff. Remember, I have notes, so you know it's next this and additionally, most of my audit clients have that write-up number just with the lack of profit segregation of fees that you can right. Financial, someone takes the end of deposits, and billing for deposits, and actually nice. Doesn't make that feasible, but we do have to write that up to you guys. And then the last one being one that most of my accounts have, not myself, but just material adjustments have been made to your financial statements. Threshold of what we deem as material based off of your revenues and assets here. And if anything falls outside of that threshold, and that we make an adjustment for, you have to report that to you. When you guys do get your full packet, we'll have 2 letters included in it. Describe what those material adjustments were that we made to your books. Most of it usually sets receivables and payables that can be booked. Like not all my audit clients have that right because the ones do those recordings on their own. That being said,
What is our threshold?
every year it varies. I'm gonna guess your guy.
So it's the like aggregate then, and not any one transaction.
It's usually strictly one transaction. So that being said, like depreciation is
Oh, yeah.
we maintain your depreciation too. So some of them books are estimated throughout the year, and then we just make a smaller, doesn't at your end, if you don't really. Yeah. Gas line that like that, or you know, when we refer to in this number and appreciation schedule we will offer. Other ones being like unearned revenue stream or vice versa, getting revenue streams that are receivables on revenue streams, so you get the spent money. Haven't received the aid yet from the state or the state. So for instance, like the $71,000 grant that you guys got for maybe you got for the senior center, hopefully you're it. Those are all things that like if you had booked the receivable. So but again, I can get you that detail, like for sure, and then paragraph letters to us or from us will show exactly which we need and that. But that's fine. Let's put that just because you're. Any questions on those before I get into the numbers? All right, if not, we'll dive right in. So this is actually the back end of your guys' report to start conversation. Front page there, all. Total assets, the internal fund for 2025 were $1,160,000 for the dollar. $1,100,000. Bigger thing has been changing. I could say assets. Not that it's a huge fluctuation in your delinquent taxes receivable. That this year's up to $35,156. That is fully offset by that transfer account right below it of the $35,156 because we don't recognize revenue until it's not being collected within 60 days of your end. So essentially, there's more delinquent properties county level. So you guys are levying for it, and then up the delinquent portion on that. So you get the revenues, and it's not all current either. Big fluctuation or big thing out there is your group of other governmental units, 194,591. The big increase in there stems from your community center improvement grant. So the senior center community center grant. Like I said, you guys had 71,000 that came in February of 2026 on stuff that was spent in 2025. So we booked that as a receivable from the state, and then the other big thing hanging out there is about 110,000 of that FEMA money for the golf course still from 18. Yeah, whatever the flooding was. It kind of got stuck in limbo at the state level, not at Josh. So Josh forwarded me all the correspondence with Gail. Hired there with Gail. Didn't really know what she was doing. Just reached out to her again. Things right there. And not really on Josh's level. She's acknowledged it. Current liabilities for 2025 are $273,677, which is up from the previous year's $100,679. Fluctuations in there, your terms payable on $175,604 at the end of 2025. Big things in there were, I mean, you have your normal stuff, your utility bills and etc., but there was the electric utility lawyer fees of roughly $93,000 paid in January for the 2025, and then $45,000 for the community center furnace that was installed in 2025. The bill is unpaid for 2026, so payable there. Tax payable this year is up to $6,865. Tax payables for your entity is all related to payroll. There was some FICA adjustments that had to be made and amended for Q4, and so those payments were made in January. Payroll liabilities then is other things that employees are collecting from their paychecks and had not yet been paid back out. So dental and health insurance premiums and dependent care flex sitting in that 11. And again, all of that gives you. The due from other governmental units of 9,303. That is there's an initiation to deactivate the DARE fund in 2025, and of that, the state pretty much is recouping 6 years of DARE funds because it's not been active for a few years. So 9,303 is going to be recouped by the state, and they're gonna recoup it by essentially holding back grid. Right? That being said, it will fluctuate from $100 to maybe $400 or $500. It's not a ton, so it's going to take a while for the tree to your balance sheet. Unless something crazy. Or something that are really good. The balance then this year is $904,761 down to $32 million. Just as normal, this is prior to suggested transfers. So normally in the past, when I come here, I suggest transfer money from the general fund over to capital outlay because there's sense there. This year is the first time since I've been doing your audit that it's actually the opposite way around. We have to transfer money back from other funds for the balance deficit. You can see in your notes there, your guys' minimum fund balance policy is inspiring that your unassigned balance be $915,005 at the end of 2025. To get there, you're $94,192. That being said, you can see that you do have restricted money for DARE sitting out there of $13,283. So if you guys want to make a motion to unassign that and move that from restricted to assigned, that will help that working capital by that $13,286. So we talked about it a little bit today. I've talked about it with Josh before. It doesn't sound like a DARE program is going to be but if you guys want to unassign that, then make that a part of the unassigned balance. And then if you ever decide to start the DARE program back up, you can always reassign it. Sure. What do you? In the meanwhile, I guess our suggestion would be to. That being said, then you see my bullet points at the bottom. If you unassign the DARE fund, the suggested transfers are $8,795 from the gas fund. The gas this year. So it was created to generate a true up of all of the costs that have gone through the general fund so far. So $8,795 was spent in 2024 related to some lawyer fees and professional fees for the gas stuff. There was $21,000 paid in January of 26. It was booked as a payable. However, that money was not paid yet as 2025 for balances. So we're just transfer the excess quite yet. 2026 is not transferred. And that being said, the remaining part of that transfer for that deficit would be $72 for general fund. If you guys decide to leave the DARE balance as restricted, then the suggested transfer would be $8,790 gas and the remaining portion of the financial when you guys can decide on how you want to handle that situation. Maybe get
I don't want to interrupt your flow here, but you're more than welcome to sit at that table with a much comfier chair table. So choose. It's up to you.
Right here.
We have to move. We'd have to move all of your big things.
We're at the start of the income statement, if you want us to call it, for the general fund, which first page is all your revenue stream. So starting at the top there, you have general property taxes budgeted for $1,399,302, which was essentially your guys' levy. Most of that came in. That being said, if you clear the city through 1.2 million, there was an increase in revenue stream for the this is our variable revenue streams each year. Intergovernmental revenues was budgeted for $1,435,130 total. Intergovernmental came at $1,224,852, and that is up from the previous year's $1,100,000. Fluctuations in their monthly assistance. Budgeted for $20,000 actual for that. The reason I really pointed out is just that the state only delegated your airport fees were $121,572, and that's up to previous year's $18,343. You guys received a grant for the tractor mower and blower, so $105,000 or so of this was to purchase those pieces of equipment, and that was 100%. And then federal aid is the other thing that's new or fluctuated. $71,822 this year was directly related to the senior center community grade. The 36 was related to the brain. So then if you look at the other state aids and grants that actually paid the most, $373 this year. That's you combine those two, that's sure. Charges for services is pretty similar to last year, pretty similar to the budget overall. Fluctuations within it, your zoning fees decreased this year because of your total collector zoning fees for $3 grand, I believe. And then your airport fuel sales, there's an increase in fuel sales, they all be at 50% side there.
26 will be back up for zoning because the college big shop phase 2.
Still revenue. Fines and forfeits, again, not a whole lot to cover there. Again, like I said, that dare fines will go away now. And your traffic fines, traffic and ordinance fines, you're still gonna have the revenue in there, you're just not getting these fines. So reducing that payable and reducing as they stuff. And then miscellaneous is budgeted for 46,000, actually came in at 37,789 total. A lot of fluctuations in your miscellaneous revenues with the budget. $31, not a whole thing out there. Comparing it to the end of this year, tonight. Other grants decreased quite a bit. There was a couple grants this year from Noble Club Electric for but the big thing last year was that you got 10 expansions there. The contributions and donations all papered on quite a bit this year. It's only $3,965. You look at last year, that was more of the outlier. There were donations that came in for the color park plan. Insurance refunds and dividends is the one that's my cities is that they got no money this year because the League of Minnesota Cities actually changed everyone from being on fiscal years or however the renewal periods. Everyone was changed to a calendar year end insurance now, and so they, because of the changing of people's year ends, they didn't know what their revenue stream was to issue dividends. So your dividend actually came, I believe, here in July or so there was no revenue stream from dividends this year, and then in 2026 it came. And then miscellaneous this year was $8,592. There was some scrap notes in there, so that is why that was also. And flipping to the next page, the nice thing about the general fund this year is there wasn't a ton of fluctuations within your. So you're going to see me put a lot of similar to last year. I'm not going to cover those. Overall, though, starting with your general government legislation, starting with council, you can see that increase to 33,888 this year from previous year 22,000, mainly stemming in your council salaries. You guys did give yourself great increases this year. Same with you hit the executive side, mayor, that also is the reason that one fluctuated again, right? Including election, there is non-election year here, so the only thing that is in your expense there is $43 for insurance. And then financial administration this year was budgeted for $178,604. Actual came at $184,337. It is very similar to your budget. So a lot of fluctuation there. I think point out is compared to last year's $117,690. No, Josh and Jackie did not take pay cut. You guys allocated 20% of Josh's wages to water 25, so that decreased. Professional services, it was 43,000 budgeted, actually came in at 59,751. See the big fluctuation from last year to this year is your professional services third. Like I said, you guys spent 21,000 in gas. Again, that one I wouldn't suggest transferring over from gas because the AP system, some people are payable for it and reversing it. It just makes a nightmare and the AP system that it makes it. So that being said, most of that is for municipal gas. A little bit is not for the And lastly, in your general government was the general government building, budgeted for 59,996, actual was 54,670. Again, not a lot of fluctuation in your budget, but if anything lower is that you only spent $2,083 on repairs and maintenance this year compared to the ninth rate this year, and last year was for the same. Probably won't repairs in years. Sure. Next section is public safety. Overall budget $747,105 for police. Actual came at $743,019, which is very similar. Again, the bigger fluctuation from last year to this year with budget as well as their salaries. So that's just stemming from pay increases, possibly hours being more. The other fluctuation in here is your DARE discontinuation expense. Like I said, they're recapping 6 years of DARE fees. So that was $9,303 to be paid back. First payment was on January 2026. And then last but not least, unbudgeted for at least in your general fund, but it's spent for the equipment of $2,571, which was purchased function. Ambulance protection, 20,000 budgeted, actually came at 20,100. Nothing last year because they didn't miss. They complete that, and now you're getting those. Fire protection budgeted for 205,585. Actual was 202,750. Down from the previous year, 230,530. Biggest fluctuation in your fire is in that pension local. So based off of retirements and fluctuations in the market and such, there is what we call a minimum required contributions from the state to catch up those so that there's not deficits in your fire relief. And so last year to catch that minimum fund balance back up because of all the retirees that occurred the year before, that was $30,953. And since that tapered down this past year and growth in certificates, it was 27. Repairs and maintenance is another big decrease of it was down to 19,505. Previous years 30,640. I would say last year was more supply, or if anything, there was a lot of just costly repairs that occurred in 2020. Well, you were under budget this year, too.
Sure, you're.
As far as equipment, there was equipment purchased out of the general fund and I believe capital outlay for in the fire department. But in here, there was $6,780 from spent for an industrial dehumidifier, and in the equipment section, $12,783 was spent mainly on turn-off and pulses. Zoning administration budgeted $4,455. Actual was only $1,221. Again, very similar to previous years, just that I discussed Josh taking salary off there because we were no longer any of Jackie's wages there. And Josh said in 2026 you guys already things to address there. Your animal control cost did only get on $12 this year, so it's a little bit less with there's this year. And so overall total public safety and a little more budget. And hitting the next page now we have Public Works, starting off Public Works Director, overall budget for 58,386, actual 59, really similar for anything there. Your streets and alleys, total budget was 438,050, actual came at 348,389, and it compared to the 308. You can see some of the fluctuations, your group insurance and even last year was 28,000, this year is 14,559. Bill repair was at least right at the beginning of 2025. Insurance that and the FIBA contributions for that was down. You can see in your salaries though, you guys did have to do a payout of his FIBA, and so that's actually reflected on the raises and for rate through. For PTO, I should say, paid out PTO in the form of insurance, also a large reduction this year to 17,472 for work comp premium. And they also gave you a work food refund, and your suite a lot of that stemming from salary fee. And then tree replacement and removal budget 12,000. Nothing was spent this year. and machinery and equipment, there was nothing budgeted for, but there was $1,445 spent, and that was 50% of the.
Strong prediction that we probably got a bill in January. 6
For me, for the down payment.
of all our trees. Very tough.
Mhm.
All right.
January.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, but it's been tough.
not paid in January. And I know you're not cutting down trees in December, so. That being said, I know it was late March and yeah. Snow removal, again, you budget 13,500. Similar, again, for the budget for when we don't finish. Street lighting, similar overall between last year and this year, and budget, not gonna cover anything there. Culture and recreation is your next section, and starting with the swimming pool. In the next page, you can just see that the numbers, and we just did increase all portions of the previous year. So that's, I mean, earlier last year and then they might have learned, so. Expected increases, yuppie, better days. Building improvements is the other big thing that Cluster budgeted for in the general fund, but spent with 3,008 for the whole year. The other stuff that the pool is purpose. Sure. Boy Scout building, same as last year, pretty much same as budget, not gonna go there, same as skating rink. Parks area, total budget was 75,376, park unit 53,003. So you had a positive variance there, came with 913, and here you can pretty much see a lot of that stems from your salaries. So salaries, if you were down to 18,351, so that was our when they retired and like 25 retired, so pay rate. And then obviously the big and great firms. Repairs and maintenance, was budgeted for 11,000, actual came at 19,600, so even though over budget, it still was lower than last year. But just note that last year was the picnic tables and benches and those picnic tables and benches all were under utilization.
Consider it random, but he said cows 5. I was like, a minute or two.
Got that again. Buildings and improvements, then this year, when I spent 635 compared to the previous year, 9,841. Last or the current year's expenses were for the roof shingles on, and the previous year was the band shelf roof, which, like I said, you guys did get a $10,000 grant period. Culture area, senior center, way over budget here, all because of the grant you guys received. So overall, you spent 71,162 for the furnace and basement projects that I spent on so far. Your overall grant was like 403,000-ish, and your what you had spent in 2025 from our just 62 and 19 off that. Make like cable TV take your other situation in your future region. Unbudgeted for restrictions. Next page is for so we're all looking for two actual except And equipment is the other big thing there that you have to talk about. Again, like I said, you guys got that grant new in, and it's two for study equipment. Late and all there in your development budget for however you guys did that. $704 for the 2747 26th Street purchase and demolition. And then miscellaneous being your last category in your expenses was 26,000 budget, actual came in 230,225, which for your guys is unfunded right now. So if you want to look at your electrical unallocated electrical analysis, $246,714 is what the legal fees were next year for the negotiations. That being said, then your natural gas utility analysis, like I said, you can say 8,795 that we're suggesting to transfer from this past year. And then unallocated property taxes for 2019, above budget and higher than last year as well, mainly from your the those valuations overall total expenditures are budgeted for $2,647,980. That's even $2,000,000. So that leaves an excess of revenue over expenditures before transfers of $239,373. And then you have other financing sources and uses coming in and out of the You guys received $13,208 this past year for the sale of your 1984 International and its Sierra. And then when we hit the Sanford route, which is another reason more hidden, these are all budgeted transfers out. So your transfer to library from $163,255, but you transfer $199,000 to future projects and $7,700. And my deficit balance here a little. Right, that's big fun. All goes downhill from here. So
Any questions on that?
I'm really sad. I'm not gonna make it. Page 63 is the start of your library fund balance sheet, your total assets and balance sheet. For life assets are going to be 93. The big increase in there is your cash checking, which increased 8,000 for the increase is stemming from the credit. Your liabilities section increased to 5,000 for 96. The big increase there is your accrued salaries and wages. It's just more hours that were unpaid for wages that were paid in January. And then that leaves your fund balance expenditure to 16,297 from the previous year 7,037. That reflects for your which we did on the next page. So right at top page 64 is your library fund income statement. Revenue stream in the library was very consistent overall, 43,707. Your expenditures, those actually stay pretty consistent. Well, however, there's quite a few fluctuations in here. Your library administration, you had staffing increases or you had your full-time staff back. I should say 24 was the outlier where there was staff there in 2024. And that being said, then your group insurance and people plan also increased to $32. Supplies this year increased 16,478 from the previous year's 6,661. There was some nice little pencils and some game programming that were all more in this one here. Repairs and maintenance is the big decrease in this one. That's down to $2,947. The previous year $15,350 because that's where you guys have a before. So when we hit down the building, that's last year. We've got 20 off for library improvement and then the LED lighting. This year in the expense, then you guys have budgeted 4,000 and spent pretty much all of budget 3,965 for. Your library reference and materials spent 14,616, a little over budget, a little higher than last year, or a slight increase in material. Overall, there's a deficiency of revenues over expenditures of 156,000. as usual. However, as anticipated, you guys transferred in $165,055 from the general fund to cover that deficit. And so the net change in fund balance here is $8,160. And I did discuss, or we did discuss today's meeting that you guys want to just wait at the end of the year and see what the step ends up being and transfer it only when you be converted balance here. Totally, you don't need to transfer. Page 65 is your fire funds. Total assets this year for your fire fund was $84,493, up from the city $40,060. You can see that mainly stems from the increase. The other receivable is down this year, $3,050. That's all related to fire calls. And you're doing another governmental units, furniture, your 770 with your line lake township, contract. So the increase in the fund balance to $84,493 is page 66. That is your income statement for your fire fund. Fire contract fee is this year increased to $42,670, so exactly as budgeted because that's your contract. However, just know that the increase nice extra revenue stream coming in from the increase. Fire calls are up a little bit as well this year. Otherwise, the big fluctuation here is contributions and donations, $7,754 from the previous $33,815. Most of the donations in your fire fund come directly from the Relief Association and mainly stem from when they're going to plan to so because a lot less slash the fire pumper was paid off, etc. The donations coming in from them also decreased. The overall revenue stream here was $54,369 this year. And then you can see your expenditures, you spent $18,136 this past year. The previous year is $49,108. So overall, last year, I believe the year before that even, there was fireworks paid for $7,500, which I said the Relief Association did do a donation to cover those last year. However, since those were not done in 2025, that expenditure is there. And then equipment of $15,098 down from the previous year $37,040. This year, out of the fire equipment fund, there was just radios and chargers and a skid sprayer. On the previous years was so high because they purchased a new Ranger after they sold their old Ranger, purchased a Ranger. And then there was a few chargers and radios. Big, nice thing that paid off this year then is 2024 was paid off with your capital leads with for that fire bumper, so that expenditure is not here. So overall, with that increase in your fire contract fees and the lack of purchases, there is for expenditures of $36,233. And away fire department.
Well, listen, so
Gosh, thank you. Page 67 is your small cities grant fund. 67,327 is the total ask. Page 5. You can see the big change in here is this receivable, I think. So some of the money that was allocated from your student development grants that turned that were ineligible grants, and so they have their improvements for fund notes. So 45,217 as a total that the city will recoup from. That being said, that revenue stream does not classify into your fund, so you can see there's a growth set for inflows of resources for that. So essentially, your fund balance only decreased $21,842 to $24. Slight loss here from the city's grant. We hit page 68 then for income statement for small cities. You can see your federal funds. This grant was concluded in 2025. $394,915 in federal aid this year. There was $4,271 in payments that did occur on 3,006. Well, actually, most of that's covered by that grant. It's a reimbursement grant. It's sure that's not covered the DSI administration fee, in assisting and getting those loans up. Again, now that you have just a revenue stream coming in going forward, for most for which would be the revenue or setting up for people out there. The next page is the EPA's general fund. That this year, the assets fund balance increased to 56,650. Main thing is in the checking account increase that reflects the 70 is your income statement for the EDA. Not a lot of activity in the EDA this past year. There was part of my accounting fees that allocated it for the EDA in 2025 and was allocated there. And then for your budget, you can say from the general fund over here last year. That changed from Page 71 is your revolving loan fund. That again, your assets stay pretty consistent overall, but fluctuated here. 231,325. Your checking account decreased to 198,875 from the previous year's 217,000. And that decrease in your checking account stems from giving out a new loan for the most receivable Franklin Center, 22,000 where you can see the other note hanging out there, while paying his notes, and second one paid off there. I make you a dollar for payment from 6 then, and then that repayment goes over from that for payment to repayment. Then there's your small cities development that we don't recognize it here. The whole office fund them. And then hitting the income statement for your revolving loan fund. So instead of small cities development that you're gonna see, the only thing that's coming in for revenue this year is loan repayments at this point. So no payments from free loans. Totaling 7,954. They decreased them from second one payment. Expenditures coming from the EDA that past year was at low advance for the and the related fees for failing. So the overall net fee on balance is 18,491. Page 73 is your 2018 fund GO bond. Overall, this increased to 438,368 in your assets. You can see that mainly set from an increase in your checking fund as well, up to 384,515. This fund initially, when it was set up, had borrowed 120,000 from the water fund, 120,000. Yeah, so at the end of fiscal year 2020, 98, 58, which is there to repay those in the future / pay your. Page 74 is your income statement for your GO 2018 bond. The total revenue stream you're collecting from free taxes here of those bond payments. Cash for $59,530. Look at the expenditure side of things. You have debt service bond payments that were $85,464 and paid as schedule. Miscellaneous expense that came out of your $915 for seeding / maybe chemical work we were discussing at the Prairie State Development, which is what this bond is related to. And then that left a deficiency of revenues over expenditures of $52,849, and to help cover the deficiency created by the bond payment, there was a sale of property, block 106 for $38,394. And then when there's excess money for the TIP revenues that are coming in on TIP 5, which is the TIP fund related to the bond, the excess money staying in there for Eilers, you guys transfer 62,054 back over here. So essentially, they don't really want fund balance sitting in your TIP fund, so you're transferring access here for your bond fund. Before, and then because you guys had that lot sale in there, you guys ended up not having that changes in balance of 43,599. Again, that your favorite property taxes coming in and success revenues from previous years that Just, you guys have any questions on my flying through these? No? Okay. Stop me if you do. The lease revenue bond 2006 series, this is related to the RDC building. Total assets this year were down $26,098 from the previous $132,000. This fund tapered off and finished off in 2026, a little bit hanging out here in 2025. So there's $26,098 in finance lease receivable still with the RDC. There is a small deficit still here of 1,197, so it's checks written in the bank balance. Actually, there's your bank balance is negative in this fund. So that was received from the RDC in 2026. The security deposit was the RDC's money. That money, part of that was backed by the city to catch up that deficit fund balance in the past, and the rest of the remaining portion got sent back to RDC this past year. And so that leaves an unassigned fund balance of 1,197. And like I said, that deficit fund balance is all related to RDC, and revenue fixin is just the expense related to it. So interest revenue, percent CD, and finances came in from people of 75,832. And like I said, fees for 6,029 was what you guys essentially held back to cover the deficit that they had created the last 10 years there. And this bond was paid as scheduled, $60,044 each year, and this bond was paid off in 2026. So this net change in fund balance here was $1,538, and again, it was covered. So page 77 is your new bond that occurred in 2024. So it's your geo improvement bond 2024A, which is related to Maple Avenue. Total assets for 149,127. Previous years 113,627. You can see your cash and checking this year increased to 99,118. Some of that stemming from, if we get down below, then your deferred special assessments receivable, 12,000 or so decrease is what was assessed on special assessments. And then you guys are collecting some pre-tax. You levy for pre-tax in this one as well. There is some delinquencies and all. Balance sheet is your 99,118, which is a return to the current. So remember, you can see on the next page, page 78 is the income statement this year, like city levy, resource here to cover bond payments. That levy, you collected $61,716. You had miscellaneous revenues from special assessments coming in at $15,501. So like I said, you had 12,000 of it was scheduled on the assessment, and then you had one person who did pay their special assessment for 2025. The reason that decreased so much from 2024 is that was the first year that we paid.
Once it led to the special assessment.
You can read it as long as it's before like November.
Yeah.
15th.
Yeah, like you can pay it after November 15th, you can pay next year's interest payment, but you can still pay it actually. It just so if you feel like paying it off, paying it off.
Okay, I think no, I did, but I did that because it was under the assumption that that's how we either paid it off, we put it was assessed throughout.
You can pay yourself off for raise.
Okay.
Saved interest.
Well, now you know. Yeah, you didn't pay any interest. That being said, you had statements out of here since it was issued last year, first bond payment this year, $12. So after property tax, special assessment, bond payment, there was still an excess of revenue over expenditures of $47,000. Again, to cover future bond payments for when those special assessments hit. Capital improvement fund this year, total assets for $860,478, previous to $1,151,043. And the big thing here is you had a big decrease in checking account, $568,000 fund. Capital improvement fund is not here to make money. Your capital improvement fund is full money to use for future projects. So in this year, the decrease in your fund balance, the decrease in your checking account, that for the fact that you had no revenues from the 30 days. Actually, what this fund is for, don't be alarmed with the negative balance or the decrease is from your sure. Your deferred special assessments receivable this year also decreased from about 397 from the previous 30,000. So those deferred special assessments were being assessed and scheduled, and actually, unbelievably, everyone through this special assessment is not so they're kind of thing with special assessment. So, finance was down to 851. So they use your income statement for your capital improvement fund. Like I said, you guys do have a little bit of old property tax that you use to levy out of here. I think it's going to 2013 or something. So some people have $30 delinquent the tax coming in. Special assessments of $23.53. 10,000 of them for places. Those ones are deferred until the lot sale higher the way that that's your so overall revenue stream is down this year thing like like you said
Times 2, wasn't it?
What?
Times 2 on the Meyer.
It was 5,000 too. 10 grand. Your big fluctuation for last year's revenue streams next. My first kind of in here is that last year you guys did receive 241,256 for the 22 increase loss. So you'll see the expenses down here related to this year. General government, there's a couple supplies purchased out of here, furniture and last thing is underneath your capitalization. Government supplies this year out of here. With safety budget for 83,000 actual 796. 16,600 was spent in the police expense for handling the police building. 85,196 was purchasing the 20 Durango and all the body rest and all everything that came on the police car. Body cams and radio for the 100. Like works, streets improvements of 3,860. Like said, last year was 342,283 because of the 28th Street sidewalk project, not road that was approved by federal grant. And then this year 20,860 was the sidewalks with the city. I appreciate so much.
And the farmer's market.
And the farmers.
You don't have the fording over here anymore.
Something they will. Street machinery budget for already just 337 figures of what I'll say. The 60% of your property. 10 greater, your regular receiver, and 60% over. 60% means they're 40% with your water for allocation. And streets repairs this year was 25,370. Culture and recreation budget for 253,600. Retro 39,043. For spending your recreation, you did spend money in park equipment 6,000 more. The previous year's 41,961. With our equipment and landscaping down there. And then your pool equipment budget is 33,947. That was for the aqua dip. All your expenditures were 492,000. There's lots of deficit of revenues over expenditures of 400. A lot of numbers. All right. Next is from sale of this of 435. Chris sold the striper when he purchased the new one. And then you had transfers from the general fund of 198,066 as budgeted. And then you had budgeted to transfer money over to the fire equipment fund of 49,683. And like I said, that was needed to be done in 2025. So that being said, the deficit or the net change balance that went negative is going to get more negative with these two chapters transferred because it's year 4 then. $1, 2, 83, 84, all related to projects that are now 81 and 82 with transparency fund projects in 2024. There's a balance sheet and things that we work related to your broadband. So you still have pretty nice expensive on it. It's not on it this year. Not next year. Page 85 is your tip 2 fund. Overall, your only thing fitting into tip 2 is your cash for 15 years, which funding. Tip 2 is decertified in 2020 or was decertified in 2023. That $223,161 to be used at the whatever you felt like, and you guys designated this for the water roll project. And so that money was actually sent out in 2026, which is pretty well for all that shit. And so, EDA transcript. Maybe you guys didn't see it.
2 out of 4 of them here, so
EDA is tip, I forget. Our tip 2 is EDA. The other tip funds are in your better. Well, that being said, for the people who didn't know that, that money went to the county who allocated it to the road project. In this fund, the only thing that, so page 86, the only thing that came this year was $5,446, which was sent to Eilers for tip reporting. You'll see when we hit tip 5 and tip 6 that there was no professional fees paid out of that. It was paid out of tip 2 in 2025. That being said, I didn't like that. Eilers was like that a couple of times. So in that, what we all negotiated on was that tip 5 and 6 will now pay the professional fees for the tip 2 reporting for the next few years because there was tip reporting done here that will be billed in 2026. And for the tip in 2027. So there will be 2 more tip reporting related to tip 2 and also paid out of tip. We said tip 5. Again, the only thing sitting in your tip 5 account is checking and managed fees, which producer $54. Resources from families should be paid from tax increment funds from tip 5, which is the Prairie Estate. So $29,862 in money came in, and then of this for Eilers recommendation, because they're not really trying to carry a fund balance in tip 5, they get transferred to $54 over to the fund 2 payment. So actually, there's a negative change in fund balance of $32,092 here, leaving that fund balance at $29,862. Your tip reporting just done. They did a recommendation transfer by the end of the coming year. I'm assuming it will just be property tax getting in. Those are just transferred over. That's be like that. Well, coming in and that. Tip 6 is related to the Older Living Center. No activity related here besides collecting property taxes from your system. So, unrestricted fund balance is actually lost on 47. And we hit page 90. Like I said, a little bit of tip revenue coming in from the city itself of $107. The professional fees that was all paid out to this year's, on this year's fund balance of $107. And getting significant relief for 2020. And last but not least, your proprietary funds, your water fund. What's new with the gas fund after that? So, water funds for assets 2025 are $356,060 down from cities with $519,872. You can see your base fluctuation in yours, your cash and checking decreased to $106,693, and we'll cover why your cash decreased and your cash flows. The other thing that fluctuated is the outlay, your prepaid expenses, and the first half of your work for staff benefit was paid on December 31st, not January. That is sure when those were. This year, net capital assets $6,335,268. Total capital assets year increase to $7,274,000. In there, you had improvement of 5,281,477 from your North Oak and your Pine projects that are done. Then your machinery and equipment, as I mentioned after chemical equipment, the other 40% of your power equipment, your 30% of your loader, percentage of the gear that was purchased out of the general fund, and then and then your cumulative depreciation for this year increased to 4,399,4, which is like and then when you guys do trade in the gold ounces, that accumulated falls off, so decreases from depreciation, decreases from trade. So then hitting your current liabilities, this year that was 71,330. Previous year's 41,066. You can see this year general account payable is the main fluctuation in there. It's up $34,067. Some of that North Oak project costs were done in 2025 and shaved for 2026 there. Long-term liabilities, the big fluctuation in here is your accrued compensated absences increased to 47,421. So not everyone had way extra PTO at the end of the year. This is an accounting standard change. So what they changed this past year was that it used to be only what was paid out on termination. Now they changed it to 100% earned. So this is everyone's PTO band, whether they're going to get paid out or not, as of December 31st, 2025, that are getting paid. Or if their salaries are hitting the water fund, so if they're accrued compensated. So 22,000 fluctuation there. Some of that is based off of hours. The other big huge chunk of it being that change in accounting standard. So overall, this net position in the water fund decreased to 30,030,279. The net for income statement for the water fund between 2024 and 2025, your revenue stream was awfully consistent between years. Not going to cover your revenue expenditures. Decreases here to 738,040, increase to 769,983. Fluctuations in here, your salaries increased to 230,631. So like I said, 23,000 of that is the change in your compensated hours. That's an accounting standard. Natural like tax or expired it's reflected in the compensated. So again, running on there, but in your statement. The other part of this being 20% of salary, like I said, went general water.
Sort of other 180. Just kidding.
PRA, no PRA did not pay you $7,967 either. This is because it's a accounting PRA adjustment that hit your balance sheet, also here reflected in the income statement. As far as PRA is concerned, what you guys actually paid to PRA was $15,496. So adding that to the $7,967, that was your PRA adjustment. Operating supplies and repairs and maintenance. I'd like to say we're just going to net these two together because last year manhole rehabs were paid out of repairs and maintenance. This year manhole paid out of operating supplies. So we're going to net these two together. 100,000 or so for the current year, 200,000 or so for the previous year. If you look at the previous year, the big thing is that you did manhole rehab 97 this year, tapering down on that a little bit. Depreciation is the other increase in your water fund expenses up to 294,719. So like I said, you guys have kind of been more realistic in where you allocate some of those equipment purchases. Now that you know using those waters and such in the department, as far as those assets now being just out of your water fund, and so your depreciation. The new category that you guys haven't seen is there's again another accounting standard change. They now want us to call it transfers that are not related to purchase of assets, filling that non-capital substitute. So, in essence, last year you guys transferred out 12,600 to the general fund and 29,895 over to your GO 2018 bond payments. We did not have any last year. If you guys think this that category used to be down below in the other non-operating revenue and expenses. So this year's 16,000 $41,259. Last year's $41,242. So you can see the fluctuation. Interest revenue this year decreased $225. Last year there was a CD that was sitting in your water fund. You guys had to cash that in to cover expenses here, and so with the CD gone, there's very little interest being earned in your water. The penalties this year also increased $12,228. That stems from increased bill throughout the year. At the end of the year, your school was there for 15 years. That means that appears to be like more delinquent throughout the year. You guys come. Your budget is just be a special. Bigger fluctuation in here then is your gain on disposal of capital assets. Zero down to 2,467 from the previous year 22,000. Last year, this year's you had a gain on the lower trade. Last year we had it sold. Bad debt of $8 past year. For the rest of Page 93 is the cash flow. That's the water funds. So this around, it's like, hey, you guys got to increase rate to take eggs. You get to do like this year. So say that. I know you guys are well aware of that. So that being said, in 2024 and 2025, before the rate increases, you guys were operating in the water funds. However, with all of the asset additions, those asset additions were in excess of your revenue stream, which is why I was always saying those rates up to the person with the cost / bill of your future. So overall, your assets are smart. Mainly. And last but not least, your new fund is your gas fund. Page 94 is the balance sheet for your gas fund. There was no revenue stream in here since you guys didn't acquire the gas fund in 1996. The only thing sitting here was 2025, so it's just at the bank balance of 2013. Is also on Richard's method. And hitting the income statement on page 95 is the only thing in here is operating expenses, mainly stemming from the election and then legal fees. The special election, there was wages for them, there was operating expenses for the special election, and then legal professional fees of 18. That being said, we discussed transferring over the $8,195 from there to cover the previous year's professional fees, and so this would actually go down to all right. Any questions?
When utilities that are well established and debts paid off and the whole 9 yards, they sometimes do transfers to the general fund, the liquor store, and city market. That would then go into that. Is that going to be something because the state, is that a state or a federal change? Do you think? So nobody's really looking at that. I mean, they're looking at it, but it's not. It's not something that's signaling a more look from the state of like, oh, I'm here.
Transferring out. Because however, some are intentionally new. They stop. So they only obviously it's when you're are there to expenses related to when those like if a bond is covering assets in the water fund, you'll see that year that then there's more that a lot of this the bond is paid by utility. It's paid for by big project paid for by
I like the city of Laverne and Marshall and their city-owned electric, and also they'll do. If you're right, they technically shouldn't be just tying down the levies payment taxes. We're going to do a $250 bill payment to the city general fund infrastructure that's exempt. Contribute our fair share of whatever that changes.
Marshall, the liquor store, all of trails around what's that big term? The water retention. That's what I'm talking.
Yeah, I can't read it.
Yeah, all of those trails over to like the trailheads for the bikes, that was all the liquor store. Independence. Yeah.
When I look at particular, like, the city of Avoca transferred their municipal liquor over to their town. Right. If in their instance, it's been on the list, sort of in their instance, they're,
They have though like specific rates that they have to stay with because of the USDA.
they're, sure.
No, but I mean on the waterfront, their rate structure
Yeah.
because of the 38 grant loan, I should say.
That says, you guys don't have to make a motion on how you wanna handle
We go back to page 6 now.
the, don't really like to, that salary.
Just like say that comment about the covering that 40%. I think Chris, you might have been here the last time we didn't need that was Governor Fuente's unallotment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a long.
Yes, on the
Long time.
comment I made in our meeting today was, on its face, it's alarming, but the fact that I think every single one of my years here, so 15 years in a row, transferred 6 digits into the capital. It's not super. If you're looking at a trend, it's super alarming to have.
No, but last year we spent a lot of money.
Mhm.
No. Yeah.
In 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like in all reality, it's if that wouldn't have been in there, you guys would have.
Right.
And you would transfer.
So we did make a lot of captures.
Yeah, so this is more. That's
And in and works. When that train stood out, we reimbursed. Well, reallocated, reimbursed. It's similar.
that the intentions that are that year that bond and everything happened.
27.
Alright. Right. That just like the gas fund, we will transfer the bond money and go back to the general fund to cover previous year's costs. And then that actually gets back to you. So you'll refund it.
Like a pre-construction.
Yeah.
It's open.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, on the 20th, let's say, $1,000,000 and
So how do we want to handle this? You want to go with the
I agree with Katie's recommendation on allocating strips the dairy fund. So it would be the 87.95 and then 13 whatever. So 72 million.
yeah.
I'll make that a motion.
For a second? Second, Blake. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Right.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Katie, do you then need a motion to authorize you to submit the report?
Yeah.
For a second? Any further discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
It will appreciate that, right? Your reports. You can move out the door, so I expect us to hear it too.
Very nice. Perfect. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the work you do on this.
15 minutes.
That's the end.
All right. So the next item we're going to move on to is the public workshop discussion.
Okay, so on the agenda is a award bid resolution and discuss the notice to proceed. However, in the last week or so, new developments have happened. A new property owner has occurred with the old Murray County Highway Shop property, and that new owner is interested in subdividing the property, basically the west portion of the property being the fuel island and the larger shop being going to an adjacent property owner, and then the east about 40% with the laydown yard in the north, the 9,200 square foot shop, and then the salt and sand shed going to a different person, and he came to us and asked if we were interested in property, and so that changed the discussion for tonight because what was a award of the bid, low bid of 1.035 million. This alternative would not be that. It would be an estimated, non-committed right now, just a little bit of verbal back and forth. There would certainly be negotiation, but about $300, and then there would be some cost to bring it up to what we needed it to be. So we do have a bit of a we do have to make a decision one way or the other tonight because we're right up against the 30-day statutory limit on when we open bids to award them or reject them. And so I will give you the options that you have, and then we can certainly circle back to what we want to do in regards to the discussion. So the decision in front of you tonight is to either one, award the bid, lowest bidder, which would be JCF out of Pine City for the 9.035 million, or which would be the first version of Resolution 0806/2026B as within your packet, or the alternative version of 0806/26B, which is to reject all bids and to further explore this alternative option. If in the future, if 30 days or less is what I'm thinking the timeline, I'm not saying drag this out for another 60 to 90 days, if we determine that this old highway shop property is not the best option for us, then we would have to rebid the project, which we have the design. We're not looking at changing that. Essentially, it's just copying and pasting new dates into the bid docs, new substantial completion dates, and all that, and just rebidding the project. Of course, you moved me to mention that bids could be lower, bids could be. As we received 8 bids. Would expect there to be interest as well. We wouldn't be delaying it 6 months from now where people's schedules are going to be changing. I mean, it might be 2 months today. The capital improvement plan process that we approved at the beginning prior to the calling to order of the regular meeting is flexible because that CIP for that amount, was the 1.2, and the phrasing as amended today was the acquisition, construction, the acquisition, and renovation. So any or all of those options for that dollar amount of 1.2 would be utilized for whatever direction we want it to go. So it is much cheaper. I encourage Weston to say his piece tonight. It's much more economical, probably, even by the time we do the renovations, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There'd be some logistics, of course, of being in 2 different locations, and so say your 2 cents on the whole matter.
Absolutely. So one day when Doug came in, Josh and I were going on vacation the last few months. He presented this, and when I came to talk about it, my gut reaction was, I want 2 locations, so I don't have to drive the payloader from Snow and the salt and sand truck out there to load salt and sand every time we need to go on about the things of convenience. As I've had more time throughout the week to really think about the logistics and think about what it would take to fix up the green shed that we currently have and to get that building up to snuff
There's a statement that I've said it once, I've said it a million times through my career, whether it's here or my previous jobs, is we can make anything work. I'm a tax-paying citizen, free of this town, and I am fully aware of the financial and economic risks of this. You know, a $1.1 million shop is not a small little thing to fight off. So I told Josh initially on Monday, I'd rather do nothing than do this. I've taken that statement, but we need it. The whole reason we were here to this point, where we were almost to the point of worrying a little bit, is space, right? We're renting space. We're storing equipment outside that doesn't need to be outside. We're battling every year trying to find this would solve it. I mean, essentially, if we kept the green shop, obviously it's borderline dilapidated. It needs steel everywhere. The combination of that, and then the building out there was from 1991. I mean, it's a 35-year-old building. It needs some work as well. Myself and Josh and Blake out there today, along with our employment works. It's yeah, there's some money to get things to where we want them to be. As far as logistics, we haven't had a lot of time to really dive into it. I mean, we could make it work. So, I mean, obviously, my dream is a new shop on our facility, but if the difference, you know, just ballparking, and obviously, if the ultimate decision is to reject the look at the new shop, my next job will be to start getting concrete prices on what it would take. So I'm just guessing with some small research to get these two buildings, but to where we need them so they're adequate. I mean, we're probably going to spend another 200, 300, I guess. So then you're with the price put in front of us. Now there could be some wiggle room on that price, especially if that property needs. We have maybe 600,000. So the difference between that and 1.1 million is significant. You can't just shy away from that here. So,
The primary thing is right now it's split almost exactly half, and 95 feet of it is heated and 85 feet of it is not. We would need all of that to be heated. So the middle one,
and like I said, some steel on the other buildings. There'll be some other stuff.
money into the green shop because we've got something keeping that.
Do you think it's viable to keep the green shop as is, even if rehab?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I definitely.
I mean, the salt and sand would probably just go away.
I mean, there is some work that needs to be done around. I don't know what it's like, you know what I mean? The cold side, you can see what the wood is like. Everything looks, yeah, with new steel and some, maybe some aprons or something for front of the doors, you know what I mean? Some stuff. It probably fine. Like I said, I haven't dove into it that far.
Yeah, I guess looking at it, I mean, if we were to purchase this and rehab that, I guess, most of my mind is what you use, what for what.
Yeah, we did a lot of that today.
Right.
Haven't had a lot of time. So not to muddy the waters any further, but the plan kind of was with the new French building is would turn our existing nicer shop into more like the maintenance shop. Only really keep the pickups in there. And we create on the north side, we have our lift there, which even if we keep the green shop, I'm taking that lift there. It's angled in there, giant pain in the it's changing. So we bring that over to the newer shop and then have all the maintenance stuff there, some more shelving, bulk oil, yada yada yada. That's the dream. And then rehab the green shop. I think we were kind of the inside is from the lift out there, rearrange some stuff. And I think we kind of just make that like some area, the gators, the mowers, all that stuff. The new vehicles they have, their weed cold side, I would say the cold side. We would there's more room in there essentially because we're not stuffing stuff in there to try to keep it inside, or whether it's going to be water parts, sign parts, yada yada yada. And then essentially this building out at the county shop would be our plows would be there, our grader, all of our equipment would be there. And that's where you get into the logistics a little bit. You don't want to move everything. You don't want to have a full-fledged tool, you know what I mean? If you're gonna have an air compressor and a battery charger there or something, but overall, if you're gonna do air maintenance at the other ship, you don't want to have two different things. I don't have two different places where people are going, clocking in and clicking out. There's that utilize the end of the day. Hey, this is what we got done today. This is what we need to do tomorrow. Or same in the morning. This is what we need to get done. Stuff we got to get. I got to cook last night. You know, you don't want to have that separation. Like I said, like, it could certainly.
Linden would remain the same.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone would disperse as.
Right.
This is, all the snow removal equipment's there. You know what I mean? And we know we're getting up at 4:30 to come in. Maybe we would all just. Right. Yeah. It's also in really bad shape. You don't have to do anything with it now. You could plan for that later. Another factory, it's more place to mow, it's more snow removed. So there's cons to it, but obviously the major pro is the can't avoid that.
This would have give more square footage.
That one green shop plus this 9,200, whatever, 9,000 is 1,500 square feet more.
You have an idea what you'd use the lay down yard for? Stuff.
This open space, with the keeping of the green shop and not eliminating that fenced in, I don't want to place that fence, let that go. You did clean it up tremendously. Probably replace the fence, make that a little nicer. I wouldn't.
Make it the lay down area be where you put your gravel pile and all that.
We talked about that today too. Certainly,
Once
if
your big equipment's gonna be out there, I mean.
yeah, that's 100% the truth.
It is.
If you got to go do some alley work and your payloader's out there, that's a downfall in my. There's a lot of nights where your days you got to come in and you just hop right in and you go. You're gonna have to go out there, and yeah, you can have your gravel there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of options for sure because that land to the north, that's pretty significant. Yeah, something like that. Like I said, there's inconveniences, but they can work. You know what I mean? It's not like it's impossible. So.
The other thing we talked, the salt storage shed is way more than what we would do.
Yeah.
But what a guy could use that, you could put some like wall in the middle, or basically make two bunkers, and you could actually in the dead of winter have a high non-frozen P-rock water main break. So a couple of years ago, it was trying. Everything was freaking buried in snow. I mean, like really bad.
I'm gonna get some full freezers.
Yeah.
That is large, and we're like 100%. We could utilize that fish. We could utilize it and just equipment, things that don't necessarily need to be completely concealed, but it's nice to have under the rug.
Legos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's definitely some things that are absolutely.
Kids are too
It's just, yeah, you took some photos of it.
This is the outside.
Yeah, the one side doesn't have gutters for some reason. There's brackets running this
And
side.
one side only had, there's missing gutters.
One side has gutters.
The others.
Close.
This is the cold part.
Yeah.
That's
Very far.
looking towards the heated, so that's door.
Main section built in 91, cold breeze in Josh 95.
You can insulate the ceiling in this.
This would be looking in from that door that you're looking right into the unheated port. That would be the side door.
What kind of door is that? Is it insulated?
I believe it was.
It looks like.
Yes. Definitely on the other part would be very interesting. Bigger door.
Like an opening side door. This is in the heated portion now, so this is their ground testing lab, and their little mess computer. This is the very illustrious bathroom inside the lab. This is to be determined. You know, it would be underutilized for like we shouldn't need that much space. This is looking just entrance into that lab. This is from the front overhead door looking into the heated portion. So lab's over here. There's not a. Is there a door over here?
That's where it'd be kind of nice to have.
This door in between. Okay, to the.
That's really cool.
Take them all out. It's very.
Concrete floor. I mean, there's
Pretty
things
good.
actually around this.
Yeah.
Walls are pretty, ceilings dirty. So say that was better than I was expecting.
It just needs paint,
You can paint
which would be pretty.
There.
Suck like me.
So yeah, that's it.
So, do we have any idea with the property to the west how close they're gonna be?
Footage wise, there was not really a.
You can see the pumps in that picture, right, Chris?
Okay.
The pump would be enough yours, right?
So in this, there's a sheet of paper that you guys don't have that when Doug brought it in, he's proposing like a 20-foot access easement to straddle
Both
this
parcels.
strip, because turning
In there
here,
is tight.
it would
Yeah.
not do.
Right.
You're not going to do
Right.
that. So,
Right.
and likewise, if the adjacent driver, somebody else wants to pull semis in there, refuel or turn around in there, they wouldn't be able to. So there would have to be some sort of access easement. This new basically north.
I'm assuming they're gonna put tanks on, right? No,
No.
I wanna keep that.
They want tanks.
They do want
210.
10,000 gallon.
Not that over.
No,
13,
no,
I think.
no, but I mean, I'm just trying to figure out the why.
They want all their trucking operations out of here now.
Instead of Curry.
You would have. Be that really, right?
Up in the air. Still save bids. Trucks. Right. I mean,
That doesn't, if we have an easement here, that piece of it doesn't cause me any concern.
right.
Yes.
Yep.
Nor does the use of the west portion of the property cause me any concern. We would see any bad neighbors.
Sure. No, I understand.
So,
If anything, it's gonna hide it. The most Curry. Either way, it's gonna clean it up.
Yes.
yeah.
Well, and it will also
I can just clean our stuff here. A lot of the stuff that's not right here.
Pink house.
Certainly need all of the equipment that's here.
And because we would have to keep the green shop, utilize the space, we'd have to put some, I mean, we haven't let it go to absolute pot, of course, but it would be renovated and,
That would,
freshened up too, so.
I would anticipate putting all the steel on, maybe all the other
Match
stuff.
existing.
Right. Right.
Maybe some new doors. Well, there is a new door.
Salvage that one because we're tearing down, but it's still in good shape. Actually, the entry doors are full.
Oh, that's
Yeah, here's scouts and then the oldest actually.
Where are you at on it?
That's what we've all of us been asking each other.
Well, I mean, there's so many different statements I could make here.
But, again, you're a taxpayer too. $500,000
We
investment.
talked about that a lot.
Well-
I'm brutally honest. As much as I want to say I don't want to, I want to spend the money. And I want to have things. I want future. You know what I mean? We're acquiring a 35-year-old building. We're rehabbing a 60-year-old building. You know what I mean? I don't want someday. I'm not going to be here. Someday the current shop might be. I would say that's like well, I would. I mean, we got these multiple sites for you, and the big new one on our space. There's a big but. There just is, and I understand that. And I guess where I'm at is, and my crew, we all sat and talked about this, and we can all sit here and say we're all tax-paying citizens, right? We all don't want our taxes to go up. So we'll make it work. This is the ultimate route, and I do fully believe there are some big time savings in this route. It's more up to you guys. I told Jeff, I'm not going to put in my 2 weeks notice. This is an open thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to disown you as friends and never look you in the face. This is what you decide. This is your thing. I needed space. This gets me space. This creates some complications from logistics, but like I said, what are they? Are they this complicated or this? You know what I mean? There's pros. We haven't had a lot of
supposed to be accessible to the highway.
yeah, I mean, there's some of that. We have all been anticipating this day, all of us in the public works group, when this bond goes through and this deal is signed and they're going to start building in a month. We're all going to be all hands on deck, tearing apart that shop and getting it ready to be torn down. We're not dreading it because it speaks to a really lost thing, but it's going to stink.
Well, a bunch of other stuff can't get done.
A bunch of other stuff can't get done.
Yeah.
And we're still gonna do some, you know what I mean? We're still gonna go through, you know what I mean? If this is the ultimate route, there's work that needs to be done that for sure. We're gonna end up with a 20 or 30 year. There's a lot of, like, it needs to be renovating and just spending to it. It needs it.
Your whole property is gonna be on a tax roll. Wasn't
The front.
60% of it's gonna be on the tax roll.
So if you wanna
the
play a con in that game to it is we're doing this lane.
however equal difference in the
It'd take a long time.
Not that what's happening on the west really is indicative of what we should do. But if that ends up being what happens, that is going to be a tremendous amount of tax. Tremendous. So
That could offset some of our
it
issues.
that's
Yeah.
not such a crazy statement. I mean, that
No, well, and actually,
state containment.
well, you're gonna have a lot of vested.
Well, how pressing of this into these 2 or 3 days we've been to really go over this. I told the guys today if the ultimate decision is to reject all bids, it doesn't necessarily take out a new shop maybe happening. It's a it's likely that's going to happen, but we could dive into these buildings a little further too. And like Chris said, is the green shack even salvageable? I don't know. Maybe those numbers aren't as low as you think. I mean, Keith said, and it seems like a very easy thing with lands, the north side of that building, it's a skating rink. All water has been now done. Does have major plans to redo the north side. So will that be remedied? You know, hopefully. So like I said, you could get into way more expensive expenses this route. You're still not going to be at
And also, that laydown part, that poses future.
Well,
my first thought was that is we just move up there and build an office space and
Yeah.
porch that. So like Josh said, that's probably going to be in one of the series.
right.
Central location be across the thing. See kids.
Mhm.
A little more to read more.
Well, I see the merit of keeping the park stuff here in the middle of town.
Can't have that's the big shit here. You can't have them.
Redo the space utilization of the green shop as a, solves their.
They would not have any.
Yeah, they cannot be crossing highway gators and central doors.
Well, they could gonna have to cross, take on.
Interact, we sense line. See track more.
I don't want to get the part to be too wishful thinking about something, but long term, looking down the road, if the electrical thing goes through and everything happens, we can rely on long term. I personally would think eventually taking care of symptoms. Obviously, we can't do the beginning and Knowles do that, but other thing is we have different voltages. If that doesn't ever get changed, there's a need for that in our budget and everything. Transfers flip them somewhere. Be a great whole yard transformer spare crap there.
So you bring up a kind of side thing too, backing up there. Doug was gonna address some of these soil corrections out there that beforehand.
This is, you can't see from the aerial, obviously, but this is like 6 feet higher.
Yeah.
Just this portion.
Right.
You can see the hill than this. So he was gonna shave all that off and then backfill with 6 inches of gravel so that this whole entire thing is more level / flows to where it should.
Right now the water kind of, for the most part, flows all the way to the building. And the intention would be to make the water flow to the north.
That would be done prior to our application. He incorporated that into his desired price. I guess if you're asking,
Because there's a good 2 feet of grade difference just between the green shed, between the storage building and the salt shed. It falls off to the salt shed. It's a lot, yeah, it drops off on the south side of that shed.
There's drainage around there too. There's an intake.
Yeah.
Kind of by the
Straight east of the fuel.
straight east.
Really big intake.
Big intake. You can see the outlet. Yes, curving that pitch.
So once approved, just
Shady's team.
Yeah, I give a big culvert.
Oh, where the red line.
Yep. That's in there.
Once. Something with a fence along there, along the north side of the lay down yard. Of some sort.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything
There's
there
nothing
right
there
now.
right now, 'cause it's wide open to Smith's shed there.
Yeah.
There's kind of a blurry line there.
That's what it looks like when you drive by. I think stuff that's there, they're still on there. Yeah.
Well,
They've got stuff here.
Yeah, they were working. They were there when we went visit today.
yeah, but they got another
Possession now.
30,000 square feet that's gonna be.
Oh. Well, you're right, but I mean.
The
I don't know,
campus.
it's like 2 rafters a day.
Mhm.
Never seen a whole building take so long.
Said with the raise.
They have to go and cut the lumber first to build the truss site.
You're shaving it with a hand.
Yeah. And as. Right, so. What is our inclination here?
From my seat, my inclination is to recommend rejecting all the bids so that we have time to explore the feasibility of this alternative option. With the full, wide open eyes knowledge of that may result in if we decide that it's not worth it, but then they bite us and the fact that bids come in at $1.5 million for a new shop, or they may come in at $800,000 for a new shop. But I just don't think we can poo-poo this and just blaze forward.
I don't think we
Because
can
it could
responsibly
be
not.
potentially half of what we're looking at.
I don't think we responsibly can just ignore this.
I would make a motion.
All right.
So Blake, your motion would be
Alternative.
To reject all.
version 2, 806/2026 B, which is resolution rejecting all bids for the City of Slayton Public Works storage.
Yes. There's a second.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Is that Blake, Chris?
Yep.
Everyone voted aye, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Y'all have some work to do.
Sure.
So now what? I mean, in terms of
Now-
the shop.
Do we
and all
want
this,
to,
where we going?
I know you guys are working on it, but I mean, it would be something that you want to possibly have the architect look at the green shed or the.
That was more.
I don't need it.
getting the estimate in issue.
Number one, he family member passed away, so he's back in Scotland for like the next month. That it's
Yeah.
not going to be super conducive to our
Sure.
timeline, but I think that would be. I would put that in the camp of over engineering.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's probably not too.
Yeah, it's very handy. The very handy thing with this is where the sheriff's office is moving all their stuff is to the Center Potter building. It's right next to UPS. And that building is not heated. Right now, it's not insulated, it's not sheeted, and Harvard just got the bid to do that. So it'd be pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is the same damn thing.
Well, did that have slab under it?
Some of it.
Some, because I was thinking part of it. didn't
Part of it still doesn't have
Yeah.
concrete. So this should be something very, very simple.
Yeah, I just have them come look at both premises and say, hey, let's get together what you think needs to be done, and we'll talk about what we think we want, and just get something put together and get some costs, and then come back.
But again, I'll reiterate just quickly. We're gonna have a budget workshop either, maybe right with the meeting on the 17th or was taking timeline here, September 8th, the 30 days started, we're gonna do a $1.2 million bond included in the 1.95, or are we gonna reduce that bar value by quite a bit because we're doing this alternative option? So if we get that, we need to get it figured out.
Exactly.
What's the adjacent property owner's time frame? We don't.
Doug takes possession on 9/15, and verbally, everything that he's told me, it certainly seems like he wants to kind of turn.
Is he doing the demo? What do you,
I
the offers?
don't know the answer to that.
No.
They're buying it as is, or they would be.
No. Oh, yes. Oh, in that respect, yes.
They cleared a lot before they unleashed on mine.
Yep. Kind of in similar fashion to the east one with the sand.
The land, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's part of the sale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
Or he's doing his own redevelopment
Right.
piece there, so.
Well, yeah, because he's not doing this whole thing in terms of demo. I don't think he's leaving
No, they want to
this
keep that
part.
Well,
So I gotta imagine that this will obviously create a hole. So maybe some of that could go in here and whatever.
not the. When I talked to them, I understood it's the way they want the entire thing gone. I believe it's time for a salvage to move to a different location. Sure.
Yeah,
That
because
makes sense.
on
That's how
on this drawing that looks like.
it's in the way.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how I understand. They want to they want to move that building.
Relocate. Sure. Josh, need anything else for me?
I don't think so.
Thanks, Chris.
Right up.
All right, so do we got more to talk about tonight, or
Negative.
are we ready to adjourn then?
Yes.
Make a motion.
Second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned 2022. Well, I'm glad we're not having a test, Carol. So.
You stuck around for about the longest council meeting I've had. In my
Well, this is one of the long.
That's how long we've had a long time.